liderlik dünyasında önemli bir figür olan konuğumuzu zirve sahnesinde ağırlamak bizler için gerçekten onur ve mutluluk. Vizyonu, kararlılığı ve ülkesine olan bağlılığı sadece ülkesinde değil, aynı zamanda küresel arenada da büyük etki yarattı. It's my honor to invite the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Mr. Boris Johnson, to join us on the stage.
Good morning, everybody. Merhaba. Good morning. It's wonderful to be here in Istanbul once more, and wonderful to be here in Turkey, the land of my fathers. And in case you're wondering who I am, I hope you don't mind me speaking in English. My Turkish is not very good. I'm a surprise guest, and you may be wondering who I am. And my name is Boris Johnson, and I'm a former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. There's nothing astonishing about that, by the way. We have a ready supply of former Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom. But much more remarkably, I'm the first British Prime Minister in 300 years of that office to have Turkish roots. I'm proud of it. My great-great-grandfather was a pious man from Kalfat. Is anybody here from Kalfat? Does anybody know where Kalfat is? It's somewhere, it's in Anatolia. And he was a religious guy. He made the Hajj to Mecca. And he was called Ahmed Hamdi. And he married a lovely Circassian slave girl. I think, strictly speaking, he bought her. Don't bother to wrap her, he said. And in the second half of the 19th century, Ahmed Hamdi and his wife made their way to Istanbul, and he became a highly successful capitalist in the sense that he ruthlessly exploited the labor of others. Who did he exploit? Have you seen a wonderful film, a Disney film, called B-Movie? Yes? It's about how human beings exploit bees and take their honey in a brilliant exposition of Marxist theories about the alienation of workers from their labor. And my great-great-grandfather Ahmed Hamdi did exactly the same. He exploited bees. Millions, tens of millions of bees buzzed and hummed and flew from flower to flower so that Ahmed Hamdi could get rich. The only difference was that he didn't take the honey, he took, what did he take? The beeswax. In England, when we want to tell people to stop being nosy about our lives, we want to say mind your own business. We have a slang expression which is mind your own beeswax. Well, Ahmed Hamdi minded his own beeswax with ruthless effectiveness. And you know what he did with the beeswax? He didn't make soap. He didn't make scented shampoo. You know what he made? Anybody guess? He made candles. And it wasn't long before he was the biggest beeswax candle manufacturer in the whole of Istanbul, possibly in the whole of Turkey. And he had what they call a dominant position in the market. So he was able to command a healthy price for his candles. And he sold them to the mosques and to the government and to the domestic market. And you must understand that this was before the invention of the electric light. And I'm not even sure they had gas lamps. And so if you wanted to go to the mosque for evening prayers, or you wanted to read after dark, then frankly you needed the luminescence of my great-great-grandfather's candles. But he was like the generating board. He was a one-man power station. And then something terrible happened. And in about 1880, in America, a man called Thomas Alva Edison had an idea. And instead of setting fire to a thread coated with wax, you could pass an electric current through a filament in a glass bulb, and suddenly my great-great-grandfather's business model had collapsed. Disaster. Can you imagine the expression on his face, the horror, as Ahmed Hamdi saw his first electric light bulb? It was like being a rifle manufacturer and seeing that your rival has invented the machine gun. It was like being a maker of horse-drawn carriages and seeing your first motor car. It was like having a vast typewriter business and seeing your first laptop computer. He could see his beeswax fortune melting away. And if we look around the world today, we can see the same panic on the part of brilliant, professional, middle-class people, such as yourselves, who fear that their lives are about to be turned upside down by a technological revolution. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, cyber technology of all kinds. And they're looking wide-eyed and frightened, like young children staring at their mother as she comes back from the hospital with a suspicious-looking bundle containing a new baby brother or sister. And suddenly they panic that they are not going to be as loved or as valued or even as necessary as before. And so people in banking, financial services, people in law, journalism, accounting, information technology of all kinds, hundreds of existing professions, they're suddenly frightened that they're going to be as redundant as the beeswax candles of Ahmed Hamdi. Are you worried about it? Are you worried about AI? Are you worried about technology? You shouldn't be. I'm here to reassure you. That's why I think they've brought me from London. I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to say relax. In fact, I say what I say to my children. In good Turkish style, I have quite a few children now. And I say, you're all going to be important and you all have great futures. And every technological revolution in history is the same. People begin by fearing what it will mean for them. And when in the 18th century, the Montgolfier brothers first went up in a balloon, hot air balloon, the French peasants thought that these big round things were the work of the devil. And they chased the early balloonists and they beat them up. And they destroyed the balloons, which I think you will agree was irrational, since without balloons, humanity would never have mastered aviation, and it would have taken me a week to get here on the Orient Express. Again, when they unveiled the first steam locomotive in the world, in the United Kingdom, the first thing that machine did, the first steam train, the first thing it did was to run down and kill a British cabinet minister, a minister for transport, a man called Sir William Huskisson. And people were very frightened. And for decades, they believed that if they went in a train, went too fast, if they went at more than 100 miles an hour, their bodies would literally disintegrate. And they called for the railways to be banned, which would have been a great shame, since if they banned the railways, I wouldn't be able to get here at all. And when they produced the first motor car, even by Orient Express, when they produced the first motor car in the early 1900s, late 1890s, people were so terrified that the British government passed a law saying that a man had to walk in front of every car 10 paces in front, carrying a red flag to warn people. It's true. And when they first decided to detonate an atomic weapon, I don't know if you've seen the movie called Oppenheimer, they worried that they might actually blow up the world. And so in every case, we see the same lessons. Technological revolutions have great power to change the world. And the pace of technological change is amazing, absolutely amazing, incredibly faster than it's ever been before. But the lesson is that for every job it destroys, a scientific revolution will create thousands more. Ahmed Hamdi's beeswax candle makers may have lost their jobs, right? But how many millions more jobs were made possible by electric light and being able to work at all hours of the day and the night? When the first motor car was introduced to the streets of London, there was panic amongst the grooms and the ostlers and the farriers and the coach drivers, hundreds of thousands of people whose jobs were to comb the horses' hair and clean the stables and put shoes on the horses. And yet the motor car gave hope and opportunity to hundreds of millions of people, getting people to work and creating jobs on an unimaginable scale, far more than anything to do with horses. And so the second lesson is that technology in itself is morally neutral, right? It's neither good nor bad, technology in itself. It depends what you do with it. And of course we can see the harm that might be done with AI and is being done. Fake news, computer-generated images, people pretending to be me. This is really me, by the way. We can see the worry why people are worried about AI. And there are new types of crime. But as with any new type of crime, we will need strict new punishments, and we'll need global conventions and rules on how to prevent abuse of data of all kinds. But I hope you would agree with me that we would be absolutely balmy to try to ban artificial intelligence, as some European countries, I think, initially proposed. It is a tool, a new wonderful tool, and properly used, it can be a huge labor-saving device. And though we can't be sure exactly how, history teaches us that an invention on this scale will create a huge opportunity. And of course it's true that before the invention of the motor car, there were people who used to go around the streets of London and Istanbul cleaning up tons and tons of horse manure. And of course these were good jobs, steady jobs. And these jobs were vaporized by the advent of the motor car. But do you really think that those dung sweepers failed to find better jobs? Of course they didn't. Ahmed Hamdi went bust, but his son, or he stopped making beeswax candles, but his son, my great-grandfather Ali Kemal, never had to worry about getting stung by bees. He became a journalist and an editor, and he was actually quite successful until, this is my great-grandfather, until he said some unwise things and even though he was a great Turkish patriot, he was unfortunately assassinated. Politics is a rough game. Even rougher, I think, in 1920s Turkey than it is in the modern British Conservative Party, where we have our own methods of assassination, I can tell you. Though the British variety leaves you at least with the theoretical hope of a comeback. Ali Kemal left his British descendants, he has many British descendants, by the way, with all sorts of legacies. A belief in free speech, saying what you think, even if it gets you into trouble, which it did both for him and indeed for me, and a belief in the partnership between Britain and Turkey. And now is the moment, I think, to take that friendship forward to new heights. We are not just old friends, both former imperial powers, huge empire Turkey has run in the past, same for the UK, both today with huge global networks. We are both free market capitalist democracies. Don't you think? Have you got a free market here? Yes? I think you have. Are you a democracy? You certainly are. Do you broadly believe in capitalism? Yes. I mean, it has its flaws, but it's by far the best system of satisfying human wants and needs. And look at us, two great free market capitalist democracies conveniently bracketing the European continent, Turkey, the indispensable bridge between Europe and Asia, Britain, the indispensable bridge between Europe and the New World of America. And we both know that in an era of rapid technological change, it is the free market capitalist democracies, free market capitalist democracies that make the great breakthroughs and that produce the greatest prosperity for their people. And I hope you don't mind if I tell you, if I sermonize a bit, and I tell you that I want to support free market democracies everywhere. And that's partly, I do. Free market democracy, I do. I want to support Turkey. I've always supported Turkey, obviously. I'm descended from Turks. It's partly a point of principle, right? It's a principle thing. It's a moral thing. I'm committed to freedom and democracy. I'm committed to freedom and democracy, by the way, in Ukraine and in Israel. And I oppose those anti-democratic and criminal forces that are currently trying to extinguish those states by violence. And they will not succeed. That's one of the reasons I have a moral support for free market democracies, such as the UK and Turkey. But there's also a practical point, and that is that free market democracies tend, invariably in my experience, they have the best music, they have the best films, they have the more dynamic fashion industries, better nightlife, better restaurants. There was a time when London had more Michelin-starred restaurants than Paris, which was, where the French were so upset by that they started awarding Michelin stars to their restaurants in a kind of North Korean way until they overtook us again. Free market democracies have better live music, but they have more interesting, more informative, and more honest media. They do. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. And do you know why? And do you know what take all those things together, you know what that means? Those places, that means that those great societies, like Istanbul, like London, They therefore attract, like a magnet, the most creative people in the world, the greatest scientific talent in the world comes to those places. And that makes a huge difference to the lives and the prosperity of the people who live there. And you want proof? Did anybody get COVID? I had COVID, it was a nightmare. Did anybody get vaccinated? Do you have a vaccine against COVID? Okay. Well, did anybody use Sputnik? Right. Okay, some gentleman over there did. Okay, but not many people had Sputnik in my country. Not many people had Sinopharm or Sinovac. I got to be honest with you. And, you know, there was a reason why the most effective vaccines were produced by the free market capitalist democracies. And that was because, you know, when you're responding to shareholders, you're a scientist, when you're responding to genuine scientific evidence, you're more likely to produce an effective vaccine than if you're listening to the dictate of some guy in the government. And let me just ask you, which country in the world put the first licensed and effective vaccine into a patient's arm? It was the UK. And which vaccine was it? Well, there were a couple, actually. There was AstraZeneca, but there was also Pfizer. And who made the Pfizer vaccine? Do you know who invented the Pfizer vaccine? Do you know who? It was a couple of people from which country? They were Turkish, right? And so that vaccine was approved in the UK before any other country. It went into people's arms in the UK before any other country. And as a result, thanks to the work that was done both in the UK and in Turkey, we were able jointly to vaccinate hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people around the world. And that was the UK and Turkey working together. Free market democracies working together. And I'm proud of I was just going up the Bosphorus, and you know what I saw? I saw a couple of beautiful homes. And do you know who owned those homes? They were the proprietors of the McVitie's chocolate digestive biscuit. Do you know what I mean by McVitie's chocolate digestive biscuit? These are the most popular biscuits in the UK. They are hobnobs. Do you know what a hobnob is? These are landmarks of British culture. Who owns them? A Turkish family. I just saw that. It's a fantastic thing. We are doing more and more together. But my final message to you all here today is that this is just the beginning. And we need to do more. We now have the chance, the UK and Turkey, to do a proper, thoroughgoing free trade agreement. And I'm proud of some of the things that your president, Tayyip Erdogan, and I did together. President Erdogan and I did a lot of stuff together. And we were going to do all sorts of, we are still doing all sorts of projects on military technology and many other things. But we need to do more. My friends, you brilliant young Turkish minds, we need to do far more. We need to get on with it. We need to think of the bees. We forgot them. Think of the bees of Ahmed Hamdi. Let's cross-fertilize and cross-pollinate our ideas like the bees and go from flower to flower, taking whatever it is the bees take, the pollen, and fertilizing the best blooms of Turkey with the best blooms of the UK. And folks, my final message to you is don't be afraid of the future. Don't be afraid of the ideas, the breakthroughs that we jointly produce, because the future is unwritten. And it's there to be shaped like a great big vat of molten beeswax. Let's shape it together. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for having me today. And here's to the UK and Turkey and our continuing partnership together. Teşekkür ederim. Thank you.